Don't worry, this isn't going to be some weird clickbait video. I'm just going to go over the basics of how to get yourself prepared for ARK Ascended. Since as we all know from Wildcard and ARK Survival Evolved, we might want to have our computers just a little bit prepared. So first things first is your graphics drivers. These are the things that make your graphics card go brr, and you want to make sure it goes as brr as it possibly can. Now, of course, your drivers will depend on your graphics card. As a RTX user, I can go ahead and open up the GeForce Experience panel. And if I hit drivers in the upper left-hand corner and check for updates, you can see it's already found a new update, and I'll just go ahead and hit download. It's really that simple. Or if you don't have GeForce, you'll probably have the AMD control panel. Again, it's more or less the same situation. You'll let it download the driver for you, use the express installation. This means that it will just do all the settings for you. Thankfully, in the case of GeForce, don't worry about it trying to download any third-party content. It's nice and clean, it's very simple. And you want to make sure you get this done, especially in preparation for Unreal Engine 5. You really want to make sure that your computer is prepared for it, because there's going to be a lot of extra processing. If you're not used to updating your drivers, you might see your monitor flicker. That's really quite normal because it's quite literally rebooting, all of your visual things. It's all well and good, and for me this took about 2 minutes to complete, so really quick. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and check for your Windows updates, because again, just like your graphics card or your drivers, this is something that you really want your computer to be fully up to date with, just in case there's any funky new technology, or maybe a computer just kind of lagging behind and missing, certain files or whatever. It's really one of those things where it just does not hurt to do. And especially worst case scenario, you don't want your Windows rebooting mid-gameplay or mid-installation. That's just a mess for everyone. So it looks like I'm up to date, which is fantastic. Obviously, I'll get to Windows 11 soon, but that's not for this video. You might get a message appearing for something like Windows.NET Framework. That is very important. Do make sure that you install or download any Windows.NET Framework from this window. Don't Google it. Do it from the actual Windows thingy. And after it's finished installing, reboot your PC. Just make sure it's all nice and clean and fresh. Additionally, if you want to be really thorough, within this screen here, go to the advanced options. And we also want to make sure that received updates for other Microsoft products when you update Windows is ticked. Again, just to really crystal clear make sure. This will appear when you do your scan, so if you check for updates and you're up to date, you are totally good to go. Now, a bit of an important thing to keep note is obviously ARK's file size. We all know the wondrous file size of ARK Survival Evolved. We don't know how big Ascended is going to be. I am personally cautiously optimistic that it's going to be not as big as Survival Evolved. I think that because UE5 as a whole is a more optimized piece of kit, hopefully Wildcards, utilize it, and Survival Ascended will actually be smaller. I'm not saying small, I'm just saying smaller than Survival Evolved, but just in case, you do want to make sure that you have enough drive space. In my case, I'm using my D drive. My Steam installs games to my D drive. I have 637 gigabytes available. I would like to think that's enough, but I think what I might do is I might uninstall a couple of games I no longer play just in case, like Diablo 4 beta. Yeah, we're kind of done with that, aren't we? So it'd be a good thing just in case to purge a few games out, some things you don't really need. Hell, even some Survival Evolved maps or mods that you no longer use. Now, I would personally think that 500 gigabytes would be a nice safe amount to have available. I know it's different for everyone, not everyone's got this many drives. I would recommend an external, or I would highly recommend an SSD if you can get a secondary SSD that you can then install ARK on. With Survival Evolved, having an SSD will cut loading times by 30 minutes down to 5 minutes or less. It takes me 1 minute to load into a server. So an SSD is really invaluable, and they're a lot cheaper nowadays. Or, if that's not something you can just casually do, which I understand, an external hard drive to install your game onto, it'll just guarantee you got the storage space available. And again, just to reiterate, I can't see us needing any more than 500 gigabytes. If we're going to be realistic, though cautiously optimistic, I think 500 gig will be plenty worthwhile. Speaking of Steam and installation, you also want to make sure that your siblings and family aren't hogging up the bandwidth. So obviously bear that in mind, be prepared that, you got the internet to yourself, fingers crossed. And one more thing that isn't really required for preparation, but this might help a couple of issues some of you might already be having in Survival Evolved, and fingers crossed won't be relevant in Ascended, but just in case. If you go ahead and open up your Windows security, go into your virus and threat protection, and go into your managed settings for virus and threat protection settings. Now, I say this very, very cautiously. I would actually recommend disabling real-time protection only when launching ARK. Obviously don't go downloading dodgy crap, you know, bit of common sense when doing this. Don't go to dodgy websites or anything, but real-time protection, what it does is it manually scans every single thing, every single bit of data happening on your drive. So when you're booting up a really bulky game like ARK Survival Evolved, this can cause lots of people to crash or disconnect. This is a very, very common issue. This will reactivate itself after a while, as you can see here. It turns back on automatically after a short time. But I'll add in this here as a just in case if Ascended does turn out to be really massive and clunky, you're having a hard time booting in, just give this a go and it should help your computer allocate more processor to running the game and not scanning the files as it's trying to boot. And otherwise, that's about it. I could go on a big spiel about how you should get like snacks and drinks and finish your chores and all this kind of stuff, but we all already know this. We played games before. I just want to make sure that you're all prepared in terms of your actual software and hardware, so you don't come into any ugly business when trying to play Ascended for the first time. So, thank you for watching. I really hope this has helped. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comment section down below. And otherwise, I really look forward to seeing you guys in Ascended very soon. Take care and have a wonderful day. Cheers.